Okay.
I haven't looked at the chat at all. So, but anyway, go ahead.
So in response to what you were saying there, Michele, my life is like a kind of a living myth. And one of the stories, and there's just so many stories, but one of the stories is when I landed on this particular piece of land here, the lady that was here, who has actually since gone, took me to a particular piece of rock that's naturally formed into a spiral that's got effectively 7 arms coming in a curve out from a center point. Now, she has been a spiritual person for all her life and knows lots of theory about stuff. And she said that there's an energy point there and it's to do with a ley line. So she thought it would be good to do something down there, like a meditation seat. So we went down and started working on it. And at one moment, she just sort of chucked her arms up in the air and she says, "Oh, I don't know. What on earth are we doing here?" And then 2 things happened. She had a very strong awareness that we're here to heal the masculine-feminine imbalance. And while she was getting that verbal message, I was actually getting this incredible energetic thing happen that was like the energy from the earth was coming up into my body. The energy from the sky was coming down into my body. It was like the center of a torus. And then from my heart, it was going out in rings, out and out and out. And I had no idea what was happening. I was like, "Carol, what on earth's going on?" She said, "Just shut up and enjoy it. Let it happen." I felt like a battery being filled, if you like, of energy. I felt like a battery, like I was being just, and it wasn't staying in me though. It was just pouring out. And so one thing led to another. I got this kind of awareness that I had to build a meditation seat there and use the dry stone walling technique that I coincidentally learned when I was in England. So I started doing that. And then I wanted a Tibetan bowl because I used to do my meditations with a bowl, but mine was with my stuff in the UK. So I went off to buy one. And instead of getting a little tiny one, I actually walked out of the shop with this massive, massive, big handmade Tibetan bowl. And I walked out like, what was that? Why did I do that? Then the next day, another thing happened where I walked into like this field where it was air, but you know when you're in a swimming pool and you're walking through water, that feeling of movement in water, that was what it felt like when I was walking into this crystal shop just to put a leaflet up. And in that moment, I was shown the reason I had that bowl was I was shown exactly how the seat's got to be built. It's got to be a circle and it's got to have a small pillar in the center with a slightly concave top on it. The bowl has to sit there. We have to sit in a circle around it, facing out, meditating on healing, and the bowl sends that energy out. Mm-hmm. So I'm building the seat, and it was interesting. I stopped work. This is now like 2.5 years ago, and I just kind of lost interest and stopped. And I couldn't work out why. And then I realized it's supposed to have a crystal in it. And I thought it was amethyst, and I sat with that. And I thought maybe it's supposed to be a gift. And I sat with that, and still nothing happened. And then just a few weeks ago, I realized it was supposed to be rose quartz. And I thought, well, if no one's going to give it to me, I've got to go and get it. So I found another crystal shop, and I went in and I started looking for some rose quartz. And I started talking to the woman in the shop. So she's given me 2 pieces of rose quartz, one raw piece, quite a small piece, but another faceted piece that will direct that heart energy into the bowl so that it can intensify it to send it out. So that's one of the things I'm going to do in these 2 months of self-care that I spoke about, is I'm going to finish that meditation seat. So that's my little story.
You know, a seat and a bowl, that's womb energy, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
It could be.
It could be. Okay.
Which was part of our conversation tonight, or this morning, depending on which part of the earth you're in.
Yeah.
And then I found out about a week after that, from the elders that came to visit, that their creation story, their creator came through this forest and stopped hair during the period of creation.
Wow.
Could one possibly suggest or even imagine that that spiral might have been where he stood, and that's why the energy there's so strong?
Well, what I loved about listening to your story is to me, it sounded like there was this mix of kind of, having these incredible experiences, but also kind of going through the motions, like the woman saying, I don't know why we're here. And there was something else you said at some point too, where you just sort of, oh, when you said you lost interest, you're like, why am I doing this? And that there's uh, there's a way to think about sort of ritual or spiritual practice that isn't so loaded with, belief and, um, cosmology. Like I tell myself often, that I couldn't be authentic in doing things like that. But lately, I've just turned little things. I've just named little things as spiritual practices. I mean, something like creating the website for Now What, and I get to a point where there's just some little tiny thing that I see that is out of alignment or something, and I'm spending a lot of time working on things like that, and I'm telling myself nobody's going to notice this. This doesn't matter. And then I say, oh no, this is a spiritual practice. This is a prayer to do this. I'm just creating some beauty and some little bit of slightly more perfect and balanced thing. And it doesn't matter what I believe or if anyone notices. It's just giving me permission to show up in that way.
Yeah.
And that felt really good. I had a similar thing at the conference I was just at with eating. The food was not very intentionally sourced, and there was a low budget, and it just, it was what it was. But I had my bamboo fork with me, and so I sort of gave myself absolution for eating this food because I was eating it with that fork, and I have an attachment and a story there, and it's at the rational level, it's absurd, and um, it wasn't like I don't know. It just somehow I connected what you said to those recent experiences for me.
Isn't it just the intention that makes it a ceremony? That's all it is, and does without what I got from that, remember when she said, oh, what are we doing here? It's like at that moment she surrendered any control over, well, I'm going to make this happen, or I'm going to meditate and bring something. She said she gave up, she surrendered, and the universe moved in, because it's kind of like that balance between efforting and then ease, receptivity. We're so good at doing, making things happen. We think we're supposed to make something happen, but it's that receptivity balance that allows it to really come in too. So I was reminded of that.
The
I had a
womb again.
meditation teacher. She's about 93 now. We used to do Kundalini meditations on weekends and things, and she would say, "You have us visualize something." Or she'd say, she'd get from the group to say, "Okay, now pretend you don't care." Just picture this in your mind, but pretend you don't care for a minute, and then things would happen. Because when you're trying too hard, it's like, there's no room in here to really receive.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very relevant.
I put this up on the website recently. I had these sections that were under construction for each of the deep dives, and I was been building them out as different partners have suggested conversation framings. And now I realize I don't even need to wait for that, but I needed some little bit of framing too. So this is what I put up for the reverence, our work in daily lives.
Yeah.
Frame.
Yeah.
I think it captures some of what we're naming here.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have time, this is newly up there from my friend Theo LeGroux, who created Films for the Planet. So I haven't looked at it yet, but apparently it's quite something.
Brazilian landscape. Oh.
Yeah, so this link will take you to this immersive learning journey. She says it takes about 20 minutes to go through it. And then the idea is that you'll contact Thea and let her know that you want to have a conversation as well. So you watch it and then let her know, and she's going to try to organize some small groups if we get, 3 or 4 or 5 or more people interested.
Now, is that? No, I didn't quite get what was going on with that cobra canoa cobra something. My attention was too many places to go into what that was about. Is that related?
She is also working with them. That's the Beyond Us group. That's another Now What partner. So if you go to the partners page, you'll see a link to them. And yeah, they have like 8 different names for what they're doing. It's a little bit like what like the things I create, where you get lost in it all. But they've done learning journeys in Brazil, 2 of them now.
So that link is where, and the Now What?
That's under deep dives on the reverence page. And I think what I need to do is just send an email out inviting people just to this, or there's a few other things showing up like that may get some more specific invitations.
But that humility and reverence is what our culture is missing, and what we've missed about honoring, the divine that's sacred within each of us. And that's why, the question like from last night, why does this space have only these kinds of people? Well, there are lots of reasons, but one of them is there has not been that honoring connection where we've received so many gifts from others who are not like us, that because we haven't been an honoring, reverential relationship or been in that together. And there's such a history of division because of the lack of that.
Mm.
Yep. Well, I see the 2 of you as really embodying the reclaiming of that in your own ways. The finding the sacred in the way you live your lives in an everyday experience, and in how you show up, just your presence, the grace of that.
Thank you, Ben.
Mm.
And I have to say, now that you've told us that you're doing this little, okay, this is a ceremony. I mean, you have such heart and intention behind all that you're doing. For myself, I'm just not gifted with being able to be in a computer, in front of a computer that long. I would be crazy before I ever got anywhere halfway there. So I honor you for that. Staying with it, how it starts with a reverential intention you have, and then making it happen is all these cruddy little steps, if you call them cruddy little steps, that if they're ceremonial steps, wow, that's a great idea. Could use that in lots of areas of life.
And I do want
and holding, I was just going to say though, just holding the space that you're holding with the intention that you're holding, I would say that you're embodying the sacred masculine.
That is my sense. What is that?
It's a rock. It has this wonderful little kind of depression in here that a thumb can just fit right into. I don't know. I keep things on my desk. So I may not be outdoors, but I I like to hold them. But I never quite associated this with the sacred masculine, but it's
probably phallic.
I did this thing in the last edition of Now What that Neil Davidson did it too. He was the only. There were two other people that took up my invitation because I was sitting there thinking, it's actually, if we get a little playful and creative, it's very easy to transcend this whole notion that we're in this virtual space and therefore we're not in our bodies and we're not out in the world, and that we can create connection and a field of connection in different ways. So I gave myself a kind of a Joanna Macy inspired prompt. That's been another theme in our conversation, her work, to do a little kind of deep time play. And I said, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to talk to my grandchildren who are now 6 and 9, but I'm talking to them 20 years in the future or something like that as I go on this walk. And so I did that, and I took pictures and I wrote a little bit about it, and I just sort of framed that as an invitation and said, maybe there were a few different prompts you could choose from or make up your own. But I said, take a walk, be in nature, maybe take some pictures, have some reflections and experience, and share it in a Google Doc, and that can be a deep dive. So Neil did one. I think he wrote about it. I'll go look for it after the call, and one other person, I think, and it was lovely. I should bring that back. It's just an example to me of how there's so much room for us to expand the ways that we're using these tools so that they come to life and we can reclaim them as something sacred rather than, the profane things that they're mostly known for.
The coaching circles that I'm doing with my MOT group, the MIT, the Otto Scharmer stuff, they are incredibly powerful. We're also doing social pre-sensing theatre as a group through the computer, and it works.
Oh, neat.
Which is really stunning, because what we do is we each of us are in, we're probably 6 of us in 6 different countries, and then we do the moving following our body as a group, and then we just hold an awareness of where we are in the room, and then that awareness is where we place ourselves when we integrate, if you like. And so that's the way we can actually get that movement combined. Nice. So we do the movement, which each of us can then watch, but we place it into the group formation by listening to our bodies telling us where in this space are we? Are we on an edge? Are we at the back, front, middle, so on? Yeah, it works. It's incredible.
Neat.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing about your bowl, it's sound, which is vibration. I mean, so movement. And I've been moved to do more with sound lately, so I've been exploring tuning the human biofield that Eileen McCusick does with tuning forks. She's mapped the biofield and where certain traumas hang out, for seeing that she's discovered over 25 years of doing this. And so you like here's present time, this midline, and out at the edge of my bioelectric field is conception, and like halfway through my this life timeline, right? So she starts out at the end and places the tuning fork out there, and when it finds dissonance, and she, over years has had a sensitivity as to what kind of sound and feel and what that might be about, because there are patterns humans have, so, and of course a birth experience is pretty similar, except how for everyone, coming through a womb, but there are all the kinds of things that can go wrong, or maybe the environment of the parents, or all the other things that can be traumatic in our experience. But so anyway, the fork is diagnostic to find in the field dissonance, and it's feeding a more coherent energy into the field, so the body can hear its own dissonance and entrain to more coherence. And so she does that through the whole field up to here, and then brings it direct, you know, eventually it's like combing through these dreadlocks, smoothing out the field, and then bringing that energy that was so stuck back to current time. So maybe, you know, say on this level, it's the heart chakra, or up here, you know, it's this third. So there's some sense, those matter, those levels of beingness in our interdimensionality matter. But it is sound, all of this, you know, and stuckness, there's a physicalness to it. It's not just emotional, it's not just psychological, it's actual physical matter, like in the, you know, as she describes our electric universe, you know, like with the plasma. And Annalo Smitsman is doing a lot with that in the new cosmology by Jude Currivan, and it has been led to use sound and wants to use sound in this Tipping Point Festival too, somehow, to have huge communal healings with sound. So, you
What
know,
was the name of the woman whose work you were describing?
The Eileen McCusick.
My mother has worked with worked for many years with
Hey,
a
I
woman
see the
named.
bowl.
Oh, look at that!
I want to hear it. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, Zoom does not pick that up very well. One more
Okay.
time. One more time.
Further away, maybe.
Can't hear it. There we go. And does it sing? Is it a singing bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always so incredible, to feel the dimensionality of that radiating out.
I don't know whether you'll hear it, but
Yeah, I'm beginning to hear it.
Hear it a little bit.
Thank
there
you
we
for
are.
sharing that. Yeah.
So I have to go in the shade.
And I have to go make dinner.
Okay. Well, this has been delightful and moving. You should check out that Albatross film. And I love that. Lead ourselves into the well.
It's beautiful.
What an, and then the woman coming out of the well. Let's capture that image again if I can find her. Before we go, we'll get that on the video. That was awesome. Where is it? I don't know. Is it here? I've got too
So, you
many
know, that
windows.
bowl's like a well, but it radiates wellness, right? The wellness, the health, utter integrity.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. I'll get it back this way. Got this in our chat. Yes. I look forward to checking this out.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, she did a
Me
workshop
too.
on it. I forgot she'd done a workshop on it. Yeah. But just reading about it is good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she had a Facebook post on it.
So what was the name of the lady with the tuning forks? Can we have that in the chat, or is it already there?
Eileen McCusick, Biofield Tuning. She has a book called Tuning the Human Biofield.
And And I started to say that Emily Conrad did a lot of work with sound connected to the water in our bodies, Joy. A whole body of practice. She died, I don't know, a year or two ago, but there are probably people that know her work, and given how water is showing up for you as a theme and sound, it might be interesting to look up her stuff. My mother says she has a lot of things on YouTube.
What is her name? Emily?
Emily Conrad, and I think Emily is spelled with an I-E, not a Y.
Sound and water. Eileen has, I wonder if I can get a link for that, a meditation. She just did a little video blog on a meditation with water at the end of an interview. It was a 5-minute thing. It was beautiful because sound, I mean, we're by cells, we're like 90%
Right.
water, and sound travels through water much faster than air.
Yeah, that's part of Conrad's whole
You know,
theory.
we've got the interstitium in the way, and that's like the meridians flowing and all that too. So it's yeah, but imagining that coherence and that sparkling, you know, the light sparkling in the water, and its clarity and its cleanness and its purity coming down into us, almost like light and water, you know, and letting ourselves feel and know that, and our own coherent purity, and letting that radiate out is and the coherence, you know, as you get the dissonance out of the field, it's like, it's also like, instead of all the scattered light stuck over here, stuck over there, stuck over there, the photonic energy comes into more density here, where we are at our core, our midline, this density of clarity and focus. We're more like a tuning fork. But yeah, so I'll see if I can get a link to that meditation, water meditation.
All right. Well, thank you both. It's been
Thank
a
you.
lovely deep dive.
Yeah, for some
It's been
reason
a
I
pleasure.
can't see the chat at the same time as I see you, like usual. I usually are able to see that, but I can't. Let me see. This time I have not been able to put it up at the same time. It's you or them, you or it. Will the chat be harvested or not?
You can save the chat. Here, I'm going to stop the recording. Any final word before I do that?
Just gratitude. Thank you, both.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Good to share.